This story is titled, My Family Paid No Attention to Me for Months, spending time only on my golden brothers and sisters, so I packed my things and disappeared forever. Hey everyone, I guess I should start by introducing myself. I'm Olivia, 26 years old, and the youngest in my family of 5. I've lived in the Chicago suburbs my entire life, but I might as well have been a ghost in my own house. For as long as I can remember, I never felt like I belonged there. I have 2 older brothers. David is the oldest, and Lucas is the middle child. From early on, my parents made it painfully obvious who their favorites were, and it definitely wasn't me. David was their pride and joy. My parents were always bragging about him at family gatherings. David got this amazing consulting job. Everyone apparently needed to know about David's accomplishments, no matter how small or large. Lucas was the golden child in his own way too. He was the sporty one, the life of every party, the guy everyone wanted to hang out with. His room was decorated with trophies from wall to wall, and my parents loved showing them off to visitors. Lucas won this in the state championship, they'd say, beaming with pride. He was the MVP of his team. Meanwhile, there was me, just Olivia, the quiet kid in the corner, the "oh, you're here too" child. My parents weren't cruel to me, not in any overt way. They just didn't care enough to notice me. Half the time, they seemed to forget I even existed. I remember when I first realized how different things were for me compared to my brothers. I was around 8 years old, and it's a core memory that never fades. School had let out early because of a major snowstorm, and all the parents were rushing to pick up their kids. I waited there alone, clutching my purple backpack, staring out the window as I watched other kids leave one by one. Eventually, I was the last kid there. The janitor came over and asked, "Are your parents coming?" I told him they must be stuck in traffic, even though I had a sinking feeling in my stomach. I waited another hour as it started getting dark outside. Finally, I gave up and decided to walk home in the snow. I didn't have winter boots, just regular shoes that were completely soaked by the time I got there, making squishing sounds with every step. When I opened the front door, my mom was sitting on the couch reading some fashion magazine. She didn't even look up. "Oh, you're back. Dinner's in the microwave," she said. That was it. No, "Why are you soaked?" No, "Sorry we forgot you." Nothing. And it wasn't just one bad day. This kind of stuff happened all the time. My parents forgot to pick me up from school so often that my teacher started offering to drive me home. She'd always ask if I wanted her to call them, but I always said no. What was even the point? Birthdays were another level of awful in my house. My mom would throw these elaborate parties, but they weren't really for me. She'd invite her friends and their kids, not my friends. I still remember one year clearly. I was standing in the hallway when I overheard her on the phone with her friend. "Olivia doesn't really have friends anyway," she said dismissively. Those words hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. I went back to my room and stayed there until the party was over, listening to everyone laughing downstairs, not even wanting to know what they were laughing about. My brothers, David and Lucas, made everything worse. David loved teasing me about literally everything. If I brought home a good grade, he'd laugh and say, "What do you want?" "A medal." Always in that mocking voice of his, like everything I did was a joke, not worth acknowledging. Lucas was the cool one who barely acknowledged my existence unless it was to roll his eyes or tell me to stop being so annoying, even when I wasn't doing anything. Just existing in the same space as him seemed to irritate him. The worst part? Everyone outside our family thought we were perfect. My aunts would always gush about how lucky I was. "Such a supportive, wealthy family," they'd exclaim. "You must be so grateful." Lucky? Are you kidding me? I wanted to scream every time I heard that. They had no idea what it was like to live in that house, to be constantly overlooked and forgotten. By the time I got to middle school, I thought maybe if I wanted attention, I'd have to do something big. So I joined every club I could find. I started working harder on my grades. I signed up for all possible after-school activities. Chess club, debate team, school newspaper, everything I could get my hands on. I thought if I excelled at something, if I became extraordinary at anything, they'd finally notice me. It worked, kind of. They'd say stuff like "good job," but always in passing, like they were checking off a box on their to-do list. "Oh, good job on that chess tournament, Olivia." And then immediately, "Did you hear about David's internship interview?" Or Lucas scored the winning goal again? Compared to my brothers, I was still just background noise. I made honor roll 1 year, and the school sent home this fancy certificate. I was so proud of it. I taped it right on the fridge, thinking maybe they'd finally say something meaningful. Maybe they'd finally be proud. The next day, it was gone. My mom had replaced it with Lucas's soccer schedule, just like that, as if my achievement meant nothing. I tried confronting them about it once. I asked my dad why they never came to my school events. "We're busy, Olivia, you know that," he said, his voice so dismissive it felt like a slap. "Busy doing what?" I shot back at him. "You went to David's debate last week." He just shrugged. "David's competitions are a big deal," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Besides, we can't be everywhere at once." I didn't even bother responding after that. What was the point? By the time high school started, I finally gave up trying to compete for their attention. I focused on building something for myself instead. I threw everything into academics, worked my ass off. But this time it was just for me, not to impress them. I wanted to get as far away from that house as possible, and I knew good grades were my ticket out. It actually paid off. I became valedictorian of my class. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would finally make them proud. I sent out graduation ceremony invitations and made sure they had all the details. I even reminded them the week before and triple-checked everything to make sure they knew when and where to be. The day of my speech arrived. As I stood at the podium, I scanned the crowd, looking for their faces. Their seats were empty. Just empty. I found out later why they weren't there. They'd gone to one of Lucas's basketball games instead. It wasn't even a championship, just a regular season game. Nothing special. I remember sitting in my car after graduation, still wearing my cap and gown, holding my diploma, feeling completely numb inside. It didn't matter what I did. They were never going to see me, really see me. That moment stuck with me. It was the first time I truly realized that I was completely on my own. I couldn't rely on them for anything, not their support, not their approval, nothing. I think that was when I started planning my escape. College was my ticket out, and I wasn't going to waste it. When college application time came, I only knew one thing for sure. I had to get as far away from home as possible. I applied to schools on the opposite coast, as far as I could get from Chicago, and that house where I'd spent years being invisible. There wasn't even a big emotional goodbye when I left for college. My parents barely acknowledged it. David had gone to some prestigious university years earlier with a grand send-off, and Lucas was being scouted for college sports with my parents attending every meeting, but me going to school? Just another day on the calendar for them. I got into a good university with a full scholarship, which was the only way it was happening. I knew my parents wouldn't help financially, and they didn't. David got a brand new BMW when he graduated high school. My parents made sure Lucas's dorm was fully paid for with everything he needed. Me? I got a congrats text. That was it. Nothing else. College was overwhelming at first. I was juggling classes while working part-time at the campus bookstore, trying to figure out how to live on my own. But honestly, it felt freeing. There was no one there to dismiss me or make me feel like an afterthought. For the first time, I realized I could build a life without them, a life where I actually mattered. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though. Those first few months were rough. I would get random texts from my mom, usually passive-aggressive stuff like, "Haven't heard from you in a while," or "Too busy for your family." Once she even left a voicemail saying she missed me, but her tone made it clear she wasn't actually sad. I think she just liked making me feel guilty. I didn't bother replying most of the time. One time, she asked if I was coming home for the holidays. I told her I couldn't afford the trip since I was paying for everything myself. Her response? "Well, if you managed your money better, you wouldn't have that problem." I nearly laughed out loud. I was already scraping by with 2 part-time jobs and student loans, barely making ends meet, while they were still fully supporting my brothers. As the semesters went on, I started to find my footing. I got a job at a local cafe near campus. The owner was actually nice and treated me like a human being, which was more than I could say for my own parents. It was nice having someone ask, "How are you doing?" and actually mean it. Even while I was figuring myself out, the cracks in my family kept getting bigger. I would check my brother's social media sometimes, like looking into a completely different world. David was thriving in his fancy job with constant posts about expensive dinners and fancy vacations that my parents were probably paying for. Lucas was killing it in his sports career with endless posts from his games. My parents were always front and center in every single photo, there for every moment. There were no mentions of me, not a single one. No proud of Olivia for doing her thing at college. No look at my daughter working so hard. It was like I didn't exist at all in their world. One day, a coworker at the cafe asked about my family. I didn't know what to say. Oh, they're busy with my brothers. I brushed it off like it was nothing. But inside, I felt this familiar pain, that burning anger. Why was it so easy for them? So easy to just ignore me when I'd been their daughter for my entire life? Things came to a head during the winter holidays of my junior year. My parents kept pushing me to come home for Christmas, and I finally gave in. I thought maybe it wouldn't be so bad, that maybe distance had made things better. It was a big mistake. The second I walked in the door, it was clear I was just a visitor, not family. My mom made a huge deal about David's new job and wouldn't shut up about Lucas's latest game highlights. No one even asked how I was doing. Not a single question about my life, my studies, or how I was supporting myself. During dinner, David smirked across the table and asked, "Wait, what are you even studying again?" I glared at him. "Business administration, like I've told you 100 times. He just said, "Oh right, business," dragging out the word like it was some kind of joke, then immediately turned to Lucas. "So what's the deal with your next game?" I sat there, barely resisting the urge to throw my plate across the room. My dad decided to pipe up then, all smug and self-important. "David and Lucas are really making the family proud," he said, not even glancing in my direction. I bit my tongue so hard I could taste blood. Inside, I was boiling with rage and hurt. After dinner, my mom cornered me in the kitchen. "You've been really quiet, Olivia," she said, like she was actually concerned. "Is there something wrong?" I stared at her, barely containing my emotions. "Yeah, I'm great," I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Well, you sure don't seem great," she snapped back. "Maybe if you actually visited once in a while, you wouldn't feel so left out." That was it. I finally exploded. "Oh, I feel left out because you've never given a crap about including me. Don't act like this is on me. I don't want to be around you." Her face twisted into that familiar expression of dismissal. "That's not true, Olivia, and you know it. Stop being so dramatic." "Dramatic?" I shot back at her, my voice rising. "You've ignored me my whole life. Don't stand there and act like it's my fault I don't want to be around you." I just shook my head and walked away. What was even the point of arguing anymore? They'd never see it from my perspective. The breaking point came later that night. I was in the kitchen getting water when I heard voices outside. My dad was talking to our neighbor over the fence. I usually ignored their boring small talk, but then I heard something that stopped me cold. My dad's voice was crystal clear through the open window. "Yeah, we've got 2 kids. David and Lucas keep us plenty busy. 2 kids, not 3. At first, I thought I'd misheard. I stepped closer to the door, my heart pounding in my chest. My mom laughed and added, "Olivia's off doing her own thing. I guess she's not around much anymore." That's when it hit me. They weren't just ignoring me. They'd literally erased me from the family narrative. I felt a wave of anger rush through me. Before I could think, I yanked the door open and stepped outside. My dad and the neighbor looked up, startled expressions on their faces. "2 kids, huh?" My voice was shaking with rage. "Guess I don't count anymore." My dad blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Olivia, it's not what you think," he stammered. "Don't." I cut him off mid-sentence. "I heard you. You don't even acknowledge me as your kid. What kind of parent does that?" The neighbor mumbled something about needing to head home and scurried away like the coward he was. My dad turned to me, his face hardening. "Olivia, you're being dramatic. You're always off doing your own thing. So what do you expect us to say?" "What do I expect?" I was shaking from anger now. "I expect you to remember I exist. I expect you to care, even just a little about my life. But I guess that's asking too much, huh?" My mom sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Olivia, you're overreacting. You're so sensitive about these things." I laughed bitterly. "Sensitive? You've ignored me my whole life, and now you're pretending I don't exist, and I'm the sensitive one?" "Olivia, stop this," my dad said sternly. "You're being ridiculous. We've always supported you." "Supported me? How exactly?" I challenged. "You didn't even pay for my college. You show up for every one of Lucas's games, brag about David's job to everyone, but what have you done for me? Name one thing." They just stood there, silent, looking at me like I was the problem. But I was done, completely, utterly done with their gaslighting and indifference. Standing there in the backyard, I took a deep breath. "You know what? Forget it. You don't have to pretend anymore. You've made it pretty clear where I stand. I'm leaving. Don't bother calling me because I'm not coming back." My mom rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Olivia. Stop making a big deal out of everything." I didn't even reply. I went inside, grabbed my things, and walked out. I drove back to my apartment that night in complete silence. It was a 3-hour drive with nothing but my thoughts, replaying the whole confrontation in my head. Part of me felt guilty, wondering if I'd overreacted. Then I reminded myself of everything, all the years of neglect, the empty seats at my graduation, the complete lack of care or interest in my life. This wasn't me overreacting. This was me finally standing up for myself after years of being treated like I didn't matter. When I got back to my apartment, I sat on my bed for a long time, staring at my phone. There were a couple of missed calls from my mom, but no voicemails, no texts, not even an attempt to apologize. That was the moment I knew it wasn't just about leaving physically. I had to cut them out completely. I unfriended them on every social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, all of it. I updated my emergency contacts on all my forms. If they didn't want me in their lives, I'd make sure they weren't in mine either. But even that didn't feel like enough after everything they'd done. People needed to know the truth. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went on an online forum and wrote everything out. Every detail, all the years of being ignored, all the missed events, that final confrontation. I laid it all out, raw and unfiltered. I didn't use real names, but I included enough details so people would understand just how bad it really was. I didn't think much would happen when I posted my story. I was just venting, getting everything off my chest after years of bottling it up. But by the next morning, my post had exploded. There were hundreds of comments, thousands of likes, and messages flooding in from strangers sharing similar stories. People were telling me they'd been through the same thing, others sharing how they were overlooked or ignored by their families. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was the problem. It was validating in a way I can't even describe. I wasn't invisible anymore. Not to these strangers, at least. The attention gave me a weird confidence. I decided I wasn't going to sit in silence and let them sweep this under the rug like they did with everything else. If they wanted to pretend I didn't exist, I was going to make sure everyone knew who they really were. I started digging up receipts, old emails, texts, pictures, anything I could find that proved my story. I found a photo from my high school graduation where you could clearly see the empty seats where they were supposed to be. I found the text from my mom after my college acceptance. "Good for you, let us know if you need anything," which was laughable, really. They never lifted a finger to help. I made another post, adding all the evidence, screenshots, photos, more details about that final night. The post absolutely exploded, even bigger than the first one. People were furious on my behalf, calling my parents textbook narcissists and praising me for cutting ties. The support was overwhelming. Strangers were telling me I'd done the right thing, that I was brave for walking away. Some even said my post inspired them to finally stand up to their own toxic families. Then suddenly my parents found out about my posts. They didn't stay silent. They went straight into attack mode. My mom was the first to pounce. She left a voicemail, her voice fake sweet, but absolutely seething underneath. "Olivia, we need to talk. This post you wrote is causing serious issues. I just can't believe you'd air family problems like that. Call me back." I deleted it immediately. Out of nowhere, David decided to chime in. He sent an email that made my blood boil. "You're humiliating the family," he wrote like he was lecturing from a podium. "This is immature. You're blowing everything out of proportion. Take the post down and apologize to Mom and Dad." Apologize for what? I didn't even bother replying. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Lucas shot off a text. "What are you doing? This is making everything harder for everyone. Just stop already." Harder for everyone? Are you kidding me? After years of being ignored and dismissed, they had the audacity to tell me to let it go? Absolutely not. If they wanted silence, they were barking up the wrong tree. It wasn't just within our family anymore. Word spread to their friends, and people started asking uncomfortable questions. A mutual acquaintance told me my mom tried to downplay my post, saying it was just a misunderstanding and that I was going through a phase. But not everyone bought it. Some of their friends started distancing themselves. My parents' perfect family image was starting to crack, and they were scrambling to fix it. My mom, being my mom, went straight to Facebook. She posted a long, dramatic message about being heartbroken that her youngest had turned against the family. Classic victim mode. She wrote how they always did their best for Olivia and how devastating it was that she would do this to us. The comments were a total mixed bag. Some people blindly rallied behind her with messages like, "You're such a good mom and she'll come around." But others weren't buying her act. Someone straight up called her out. "Why doesn't Olivia visit anymore? There must be a reason." I couldn't stop laughing when I saw it. That little spark of satisfaction watching people finally hold them accountable was just the cherry on top. It wasn't about David's awards anymore or Lucas's games. All attention was on me for once. But my parents weren't done. A few days later, I got a message from Aunt Catherine, one of the few relatives I'd been close to. She said she'd heard about my post and wanted to talk. I figured she'd be on my side, but nope. I answered the phone, and she started in right away. "Olivia, I don't understand why you're doing this. Your parents aren't perfect, but they love you." I cut her off immediately. If they loved me, they wouldn't have treated me like I didn't exist for years. And they definitely wouldn't have told our neighbor they only have 2 kids. She acted like I was being difficult. "Families fight, Olivia, but you don't air your dirty laundry in public. This isn't how you solve things." I told her straight up, it's not about solving things. It's about finally telling the truth. If they didn't want this out there, maybe they should have acted like parents instead of pretending I didn't matter. She didn't have much to say after that. But the messages kept coming from other family members, cousins, aunts, even family friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone had an opinion, and most of them said the same thing. "You're being too harsh." But the thing is, I wasn't being harsh. I was being honest. At some point, I realized I didn't have to keep defending myself to these people. They weren't there when my parents skipped my graduation. They didn't see me sitting in the snow waiting for a ride that never came. They didn't live through years of being ignored while my brothers were showered with love and attention. So I stopped responding. Instead of defending myself, I threw myself into building my life without them. I started spending more time with friends who were nothing but supportive. Mara, my best friend, even joked about it. "You should just adopt us as your family. We're way better anyway." She wasn't wrong. Around this time, I started making bigger moves to separate myself from my family completely. I legally changed my last name, updated all my records, and changed my emergency contacts. I didn't want them tied to me in any way, not even on paper. It was freeing in a way I can't even explain, like cutting the last invisible thread that had been weighing me down for years. At that point, they finally went silent. I thought maybe the dust had settled. But it turns out that was just the calm before the storm. My parents didn't just sit back and let things slide. They went straight into full-blown damage control mode. But this wasn't about repairing their relationship with me. This was about saving face in their social circles. And boy, were they scrambling. They weren't just trying to save their reputation. They were actively trying to destroy mine. A mutual acquaintance sent me screenshots of my mom's post in one of her Facebook groups. She claimed I was unstable and making up lies because I was jealous of David and Lucas. She said she and my dad had done everything for me, but I was ungrateful and determined to hurt the family. The kicker? She ended it with, "It's heartbreaking to see your own child turn against you for no reason," complete with a sad emoji and a Bible quote about forgiveness. The hypocrisy was staggering. The comments made my blood boil. Her church friends chimed in with things like, "You're such a good mother, and Olivia will come around eventually." One even added, "Some kids don't realize how lucky they are until it's too late." Lucky? Seriously? I'd spent my entire childhood being ignored and overlooked, and they had the audacity to call me lucky? But the worst part was seeing relatives join in on attacking me. A cousin I hadn't heard from in years commented, "I always thought Olivia was a little dramatic." Another relative messaged me directly, "You're being unfair to your parents. They've always been so kind to us. Are you sure this isn't just a misunderstanding?" That word, misunderstanding, has sat with me for days. How do you misunderstand a lifetime of being ignored? How do you misinterpret being erased from your own family? I left them all on read. I didn't trust myself to respond without saying something I would regret later. People in my hometown started connecting the dots. Even though I never mentioned names in my post, I suddenly started hearing from everyone: old neighbors, mutual acquaintances, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. A message came from a former neighbor. "I always thought your parents were a little too focused on your brothers, but I never realized it was this bad. I'm so sorry you had to go through that." Part of me wanted to say, "Where was this energy when I was a kid?" But I just left it on read instead. Then came more relatives. Some sent apologies that felt more like they were clearing their own consciences than actually owning up to anything. Others weren't so kind. One messaged about how I was tearing the family apart and needed to make things right. That one stung more than I expected, even though I deleted it without replying. As much as I didn't want to care, it hurt to lose some extended family. A cousin I'd been close to growing up sent a long text. "I just don't know if I can be in the middle of this, Olivia. I'm sorry. I think it's best if we don't talk for a while." For a second, I wanted to argue with her, to explain everything she didn't know about my parents. But what was the point? If she couldn't see the truth after everything I'd shared, she probably never would. That realization hit hard. Cutting ties with my parents didn't just mean losing them. It meant losing anyone who chose to stay on their side. I thought I was prepared for it, but feeling the cracks grow in relationships I thought I could count on made me question if I'd gone too far. But the real hit came when my parents escalated things. Out of nowhere, I got a letter from a lawyer, an actual cease and desist. They accused me of defamation and claimed my post was damaging their reputation. They demanded I take it down immediately. I sat there staring at the letter, feeling like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I thought I was just sharing my story, my truth. I hadn't expected it to blow up like this, let alone turn into a legal mess. I called a lawyer of my own. She assured me I was protected under free speech since I hadn't used real names and was simply sharing my lived experiences. Still, the stress was overwhelming. The legal threat wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was how fast the story was spreading. Mutual acquaintances started messaging me, asking what was going on. Some were just nosy, others were outright judgmental. Even at work, people were whispering. One coworker approached me casually. "Hey, I saw this post about family drama. Sounds familiar." I brushed it off, but inside I was panicking. My professional life was supposed to be my safe space, and now it felt like that was slipping away too. Meanwhile, my parents' social circle was unraveling. People were asking them uncomfortable questions like, "Why didn't you go to Olivia's graduation? And why does she feel so distant from you?" From what I heard, they didn't have answers, and some of their closest friends were starting to pull away. But instead of reflecting on their actions, they doubled down. It wasn't just family trying to drag me down anymore. Somehow, word had gotten to my workplace. A coworker casually mentioned over lunch, "So I heard you've been dealing with family drama." That post was a lot. My stomach dropped instantly. "How did you even find that?" I tried to sound unfazed. She just shrugged. "Someone shared it in a group chat. Honestly, some people think it's a little intense. But hey, you do you." For the rest of the day, I couldn't stop wondering how many people at work were whispering behind my back. Every time I caught someone glancing my way in the break room, I wondered if they thought I was the unstable daughter my mom was painting me as. What had felt empowering at first now felt like a grenade I'd pulled the pin on without thinking about the consequences. Then David sent another email, shorter this time, but just as infuriating. "You're humiliating us. Take the post down before you make things worse." There was no acknowledgement of how they had treated me, just concern about their image and reputation. And Lucas, ever the peacemaker, tried a softer approach with a text. "Can we talk? This is getting out of hand." I didn't reply to either of them. They weren't reaching out because they cared about me or my feelings. They were reaching out to protect their own image and my parents' reputation. But honestly, I started questioning if I'd done the right thing. The post had felt empowering at first, like finally taking control of my story. But now, everything felt like it was spinning out of control. I wasn't just exposing the truth anymore. I was caught in the fallout. My parents had always been masters at controlling the narrative about our family. Even though I'd flipped the script, they were fighting tooth and nail to regain that control. They weren't interested in making amends. They just wanted to silence me. My friends tried to reassure me. Mara pulled me aside one day and said, "You don't have to go through this alone. We've got your back." While I believed her, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was dragging everyone into my mess. I thought about deleting the post just to make everything stop. But would that even work? Would it undo the damage that had already been done? Or would it just make me look like I'd caved under pressure from my family, validating their claims that I was just being dramatic? The weight of it all was crushing. For the first time in a long time, I felt stuck. I didn't know what my next move should be. Part of me wanted to keep fighting, to stand my ground and not let them silence me the way they had my entire life. But another part wondered if it was worth it, if the stress and anxiety were taking too much of a toll. Right then, I was just trying to figure out how to breathe again. I was stuck in the middle of this mess, trying to figure out what the hell to do next. After weeks of feeling stuck and overwhelmed, I finally realized something important. I was letting them win. My parents had been controlling the narrative my whole life, and here I was letting them do it again. That lawyer letter, the judgmental messages, the whispers at work, it was all just noise. And honestly, I was done with it. I sat down with my lawyer again, mostly to calm my nerves. She told me what I needed to hear. I wasn't in the wrong. My post was anonymous, factual, and there wasn't a single thing my parents could use against me legally. Once I let that sink in, I could finally breathe again. That's when I knew I needed to reclaim my story. I wrote another update online, but this time I didn't hold back. I laid everything out, the lawyer letter, the messages, the fallout with extended family. I didn't just talk about it. I showed proof. I posted screenshots of texts, the cease and desist letter with names blacked out, even the photo of those empty seats at my graduation. I wasn't just telling my side anymore. I was showing it with evidence that couldn't be disputed. The response was something else. Comments flooded in by the thousands. People weren't just supporting me. They were tearing apart every excuse my parents had tried to make. "Classic emotional manipulation," one commenter wrote. Another added, "This is exactly why we need to call out toxic family dynamics." It felt so good seeing strangers validating everything I'd felt for years. Even David went quiet after that. I think he realized that his usual smug, condescending emails weren't going to work anymore. Lucas sent another text asking, "Do you really want to cut ties forever?" But honestly, I didn't even bother replying. If they weren't willing to own up to what they'd done, what was the point of maintaining a relationship? At work, things actually turned out better than I expected. The co-worker, who'd hinted at the post before, brought it up again, but this time, her tone was different. "I saw your update," she said. "That took guts. I'm sorry you had to deal with that." There was no judgment, no awkwardness, just support and understanding. So yeah, it was messy and painful, but I feel like I finally got my footing again. My parents' attempts to control the narrative backfired completely. For the first time in my life, I'm not the one sitting in silence while they spin their lies. I'm the one telling the truth and being heard. I've been focusing on the people who actually matter, the ones who show up for me, not just when it's convenient for them, but consistently. The ones who see me as a whole person, not just an afterthought. The holidays are coming up, and this year I'm hosting a little dinner with my friends. There won't be any forced smiles or fake conversations, just people who genuinely care about me for who I am. For the first time in my life, I'm actually looking forward to the holidays, instead of dreading them. My parents and brothers tried their best to take me down, to silence me and make me fall back in line. But here I am, still standing my ground. It's not perfect, and I'm sure there's more drama to come, but for now, I finally feel like I'm in control of my own story, and that's a win I'll gladly take. Looking back on everything that's happened, I can see now just how toxic my family environment truly was. For years, I blamed myself. I thought if I just tried harder, if I was just a little better, a little more accomplished, then maybe they'd notice me. Maybe they'd care. But that was never going to happen. The problem wasn't me, it was them. They were never going to see me or value me the way parents should value their child. I've learned so much through this whole experience. I've learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who makes space for you in their lives, who sees you for who you truly are and loves you anyway. My friends have become my family now, and they've shown me more love and support in the past year than my biological family did in my entire life. I've also learned about setting boundaries and standing up for myself. For so long, I was the quiet one, the one who never rocked the boat. the one who took the neglect and pretended it didn't hurt. But speaking my truth, even when it was messy and complicated, has been incredibly empowering. I don't have to accept being treated as less than anymore. I deserve better, and I'm not afraid to say that now. There are still hard days, of course. Days when I wonder what it would be like to have parents who were actually proud of me, who showed up to my graduation, who called just to check in because they cared. Sometimes I still catch myself grieving for the family I never had and never will have. But I'm also excited about the future in a way I never was before. I'm building my own life on my own terms. I'm surrounding myself with people who actually want to be around me. I'm creating new traditions and new memories that aren't tainted by neglect or favoritism. To anyone else who might be going through something similar, who feels invisible in their own family, who's constantly overlooked and forgotten, you're not alone. Your feelings are valid. You deserve to be seen and heard and loved. And sometimes the hardest but healthiest thing you can do is walk away from the people who won't give you that, even if they're family, especially if they're family. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this journey, whether through messages, kind words, or just reading my story. It's been a wild ride, but I'm finally in a place where I feel happy, loved, and free. This is my life now, and it's only getting better from here. Looking ahead, I'm focusing on building the life I want without the weight of their expectations, or more accurately, their lack of expectations for me. I'm thinking about going for my master's degree next year, something I'd always wanted to do but never felt supported enough to pursue. Now I realize I don't need their support or approval. I just need to believe in myself. I've also started volunteering at a local youth center, working with kids who come from difficult home situations. In a way, it's healing to be able to provide the kind of encouragement and attention that I never received. When I tell these kids that they matter, that their thoughts and feelings are important, I mean it with my whole heart, because I know how crucial those words can be to a child who doesn't hear them at home. The holidays that used to fill me with dread now actually excite me. Mara and I are planning a chosen family Thanksgiving dinner, and we've already started shopping for decorations. There will be no walking on eggshells, no passive-aggressive comments, no feeling like an afterthought at my own table. Just good food, genuine laughter, and people who choose to be together. Sometimes I think about what would happen if my parents tried to reach out again. What would I do? What would I say? But they haven't, and I'm not sure they ever will. Their pride seems more important to them than repairing our relationship. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I've mourned that relationship already. I've accepted that they will never be the parents I needed them to be. So I'm moving forward, day by day, building something beautiful from the ashes of what I left behind. And for the first time in my life, I'm not invisible. I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm valued, and that makes all the difference in the world.